right? Like you say Lethwei, right? And we say
Yeah.
Lethwei.
Oh no, I say Lethwei.
That's what I do too now. If you listen to
Oh,
Robin
okay.
Black, he's like, this is Lethwei. And he's saying it like that.
Yeah.
I trained with Dave LeDuc actually. And the
Oh,
interesting thing
awesome.
is like when I trained with him, he actually said Lethwei. And then something happened where he went with Robin Black and then he's now saying Lethwei too. And I'm like, damn, am I wrong? Hey guys, what's up? I'm Matt from War Republic, and this is the Warrior Within podcast where we talk to up and coming fighters, famous fighters, and pretty much professionals you want to know about. And today we have Nicola Barke, the Burmese Python, and she is the Warrior Within. How are you doing?
I'm brilliant. Really good, thanks. Loving the introduction.
Thank you so much. So, like I guess I said before, just briefly with you, we just wanted to talk about martial arts. You started doing Taekwondo, is that correct? What was your first experience at martial arts?
Yeah, it actually was Taekwondo. You'll never believe it. So I got into martial arts because I was really bad at ballet. I did ballet for about 16 years, could not dance for the life of me. And took about 16 years before I had the confidence to say, Mum and Dad, like, look, this isn't for me. Like, I want to try something else. And that's when I was like, okay, Taekwondo, it sounds pretty opposite. Contact, a bit more violent, not as graceful. I think maybe I'll be good at that. And then absolutely loved it. And that's where the martial arts journey initially started for me in, traditional Taekwondo.
And how old were you when you started?
I was 16, 17.
Oh, okay. And then you did ballet. So you literally, like, out of the womb did ballet. Like, you were just dancing and dancing. That's crazy.
Pretty much. Like, the minute I could walk, Mum was like, in a tutu, get on stage.
That's crazy. I bet, because I saw even you had a pictures of you doing it. I wonder how graceful does that make, movements in your professional fighting?
I'd like to say it's been a massive help, but I think because I wasn't very talented at ballet, like you can't see the transferable skill because I don't think I started off with much. And then ended up just getting it most from actually fighting. And you know what? I remember the first time I went into the martial arts dojo and the first time we did sparring. And the first time a punch was thrown to me, I remember like shutting my eyes and like shying away and thinking like, oh God, like how do people do that? And then literally like a week later, you sort of just get used to it. And it almost just feels like, just part of everyday life. Just get punched in the face.
I know, it's amazing what you get used to, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely incredible.
But it's also more than that. It's also like, I always say the most, and it's interesting. I've interviewed quite a bit of even fighters and stuff. It's amazing how peaceful most of you are. And I think it's because of the act of aggression, you get all that out,
Yeah. No, and I think that's really true, though. It's like one extreme or the other, like almost all or nothing. So it's either like everything's guns and blazing and going, or it's just like peace and quiet, and I just don't want that much drama.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's just I even see when I was watching, there's not too much of your Taekwondo stuff that I saw, but like even I saw a little sparring match. Like you're like I can tell you're more of a fighter even when you were in Taekwondo. Like you're staying in a pocket, you're not just hitting a sidekick, running away. Like you're in the pocket, just keep going.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it, to be honest. And I always used to say when I did really bad in like the patterns, which is like the traditional kata, those set movements. I never used to get gold in that, and I always used to be like, well, that's just my warm up for the fight. And then when I fight, then it'll be serious, and then it'll be absolutely fine. And just completely ended up really just loving it.
And it's amazing because I see the Muay Thai Grand Prix thing you were doing, and it basically your Taekwondo shows there. You're sidekicking people, and they're having a hard time with it. So, I guess tell me how much it's helped that kind in your background in martial arts.
So the sidekick in particular has been very helpful in kickboxing, Thai boxing, and even in the Lethwei fight. To be honest, I feel like not that many fighters use a sidekick. I feel like it's a really underrated tool in fighting, and if you can nail it, you can either use it as almost like a boxer's jab, literally to keep them at bay, to keep them at distance, because they're always like your leg distance away, or actually use it more aggressively and come in and almost like a stoppage to the body. And then, you know, you said with Dave, when he does a fake low kick and then side kick to the face and just completely catches them off guard, which is also pretty brilliant.
Right, right.
I think it's really versatile, but yeah, massively underused.
You even see it with MMA, like, you know, you never saw sidekicks, and now you're seeing people do sidekicks and stuff. So,
yeah, absolutely. Not quite in the traditional way of the Taekwondo. I don't know if you've watched much Taekwondo where they sort of hold the leg out and then just like pop out that side kick like continuously.
right.
Literally like a jab, like ba 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 ba.
Yeah. Like it's like Van Damme style, you know, like whap, whap, whap.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly.
Also, like, you know, a lot of people, because you're definitely a world-class striker, a lot of people don't realize, like, when you, I like that you said jab with your leg, a lot of people don't realize you can do that with a front kick or a side kick, and you can measure your range with your feet.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you're a kicker, I feel, because I come from a kicking background, I feel like I gauge a kicking distance better than a punching distance, especially when I first started. Because I was, you know, I was either like too close or then like too far away, but you throw out a kick and I'm like, okay, I know how like long you are now in terms of limbs. So absolutely that. And I feel like often it's sort of coming into commentary now. People say like, oh, she uses her feet like it's a jab, you know? And I was like, yeah, completely intended.
That's awesome. And, you know, even if they're pursuing you and you're jabbing with your feet, you know, there's only one more step or two and then you have them right with your hands. So it's an awesome, because I do the same thing. It's an awesome setup, too, to like know when they're coming in. And if they get past it or they stop at that point, you just nail them with your hands, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And also one of my favorites is like going to the head with a turning kick and then just holding it. But before it comes, you know, because you catch them in the head and then they want to come forward and then you can stop them with the side kick.
Nice.
To sort of regain that distance. Like, I absolutely love that technique.
And, you know, talk about pushing with space with that, too. Like, it's such help to, because you're also, like you just said, you're also using it now, you're creating distance so you can get away or maneuver. Yeah. So it's super, super underrated. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So you are a tough-ass girl, like, to do Lethwei. Let's just talk a little bit about that. And you know, you're the Burmese Python. It's Myanmar. Like, why did you discover Lethwei? Was it seeing Dave Leduc, or was it just your own and want to go to the country that you are related to?
Yeah, so my mum was actually born in Myanmar as a kid. And I remember growing up, I was like, I'm going to take you home one day. I'm going to take you home one day. Like, I had no idea how. And then when I was given the name the Burmese Python and started doing some more research about the country, so I get really interested in the heritage and found out like, oh, wow, there's this really cool sport there. And that's super ancient. And, you know, they do fights. It's like a traditional martial arts fighting style. Started watching and just thought it was absolutely incredible. I mean, you see the people there, and I think when you're always on the side of the screen, you're like, I could definitely do that. And you're like, that's going to be no problem. Like, the nerves will be normal. And then you get there and you sign up, and, you know, it then sort of just hits you as you're about to walk out. Like, what? Have I just actually signed up for, like, a bare-knuckle boxing fight?
Right.
With headbutts? Like, I haven't even had a street fight. What am I doing? I even said to all my friends and family at the time, I was like, did none of you tell me this was like a bad idea? And they were like, you are not listening to anyone.
It's probably, dude, that's amazing. Because it's probably one of the most craziest things in the States here. It's funny how, like, we think we're extreme, but, you know, we have bare knuckle, but it's just no boxing gloves. And that's the most extreme thing you're doing in martial arts. That, for people who don't know, it's like over 2,000 years old. Myanmar had, like, what Thailand has Thai boxing, it adds headbutts and other things that basically have been lost through translation. And limbs. What's that?
The 8 limbs.
Yeah, it's really, it's 9 limbs, actually, because you're using the head.
Yeah.
Muay Thai is the 8 limbs.
Yes, Muay Thai is 8 limbs. All right, yeah, you know. But yeah, like I said, like, a question I wanted to ask you is because I was watching some of your other fights, and it's not that you're not smooth or whatever, but it's funny when you said the nerves coming out, because I was like, whoa, it must feel like a different fight when your hands are wrapped and you're doing that, because, like, it almost looked like you're not fighting for the first time, but it looked like a different type of fight. And you could, like, I could see it because I'm not like a layman, I guess, but, like, did you feel like that pressure going in, like, wow, I'm in a street fight?
Not necessarily, wow, I'm in a street fight, but it was more so like, okay, Women are naturally dramatic. I'm very dramatic. But I think you can't laugh. The final thought was like, I could die. Was actually what went through my head. Oh dear, that was the actual thought was going through my head. And then after that, you know what? When I have gloves on, and I don't know if you find the same too, but I find when I fight with gloves on, you know, even though you know that you're getting punched, you know you're getting kicked, because of all the adrenaline, I just don't feel it all. And then the first jab that was landed without the gloves, I absolutely felt it, and I was like, oh no, we're not standing still, we're gonna have to start moving. So that was a big difference. I immediately felt like far more like consciously there, whereas I think sometimes I zone out. I'm sort of, you know, more in the state of flow, and it's just like all very automatic, and like you're responding just because you've trained so hard. And not that I didn't train hard, but it just felt like I was so more present and there in the moment. Just everything was heightened.
Interesting.
Wow, that is interesting. Because it is crazy looking, and it's like just something a lot of people like even when you see with the headbutts, and just said as a sport, like it's effing wild. It's fucking wild. So for you to do that, and you're just a woman from like, you know, UK. I don't know any women even that are fighters. There's men that are scared of doing that. So.
I know, but you know what? I felt afterwards like I'm never going to be nervous for another gloved fight. This is me being like majorly optimistic, but we'll see when my next fight is, if that proves to be true. But I think it's massively like character building.
It's even, well, you know, did you have any like real injuries afterwards? Like you didn't look like your face was too messed up or anything like that, did you?
No, you know what? So I dislocated my shoulder in the first like minute of the fight.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. And you know what the funny thing is? I was trying to keep it really discreet, like as you do, you don't want your opponent to know. So I kept trying to pick it up with the other hand and like hook it in my hair, or like try and make it hold my ear.
Okay.
It kept like dropping down.
Oh, wow.
And I remember going back to my corner afterwards, and I remember being like, oh, my arm's out, like what are we going to do? And I was panicking so much. And he was like, look, it's Lethwei, it's 9 limbs, like you just got one less, it's cool. And I was like, that's so true.
That's hilarious.
That's so true. And that's all I needed. And then I was like back in it, ready, and I was like, that's it, I've got my legs, got everything else. I don't know, the adrenaline, I think I felt like I still tried to use it during the fight, even though it was out. And it was only afterwards when the doctor popped it back in. I remember I was very dramatic. I just literally walked into like the doctor's room afterwards. So I was like, my arm's out, I'm just gonna lay on the bed when you're ready. Yeah, like literally like that.
Why not though? You just went to war, you know, like pamper me a little bit. My stuff's unhinged, literally.
Yeah. And are you familiar with the Lethwei dance?
Yes, yeah. Well, you know, you have the Lokomon, right? You have that, and then there's the whole like the Thai people have the whole like music and dance too. Can you tell me like, yeah, go ahead, tell me more about that? And I guess for people who are watching that don't understand it, you can tell me a little bit.
So, from what I understand of the dance, you only get to perform it if and when you win. So you both get to learn it, and so this was my first time fighting Lethwei for WLC, and it was the day before, and they said, put your hand up if you think you're going to win. So like everyone puts your hand up, and then it's like, okay, so if you win, you get the opportunity to do this dance. Do you want to do it? So I feel like there's always that internal thing when your opponent puts your hand up, you're like, no, like I'm going to win.
Yeah.
And then you end up like both having to learn the dance like the night before your fight, never having learned the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
And I was thinking it was going to be like quite short and succinct. But as you know, the Thai one is sort of it's very graceful, but it's actually quite long as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of set movements. So I remember recording it on my phone the night before, going to bed and being like, oh, I don't know. Don't know if I feel like in the right mood to start practicing a celebration dance. I'm like just about to go to bed before this biggest fight. It got to the end of the fight, I'd won, and then I hear this music come on, and I remember thinking like, oh no, I didn't study this well, did I? And just have to pick up the flag and try and freestyle as much as it. I did it afterwards, and everyone was like, that wasn't the dance. But I mean, it was like best intentions, and I did try, but I don't think it was quite the replica.
Oh man, that's interesting. I didn't necessarily think about that, when I saw it. But yeah, that's pretty wild. I'm sure, like most people didn't really care. You're swinging the flag. You kind of represented them anyway, and I'm sure a lot of people respected that.
Yeah, I hope so. That was definitely the vibe I was going for.
But that's great. I mean, I wonder if the other person you fought to did the same thing, and they're like, "I'm not learning now." Yeah, and maybe that messed with their psyche. Like, wait, if I don't learn the dance, then that means I don't want to win. Wait, did she learn it?
Probably in the corner giving me like tips or something, and you're like, no, it's left.
Oh man. So, I guess another question is like, was the first time you were in Myanmar? How is that country?
Yeah, it was. Oh, you know what? The people, they are just absolutely lovely. You know, such kind hearts, so supportive as well. But I didn't expect to have such a brilliant fan base and support. Even like walking on the streets, I'd be walking on the streets and they pull up in the car. And I don't know. I live in Luton in the UK, which is a little bit rough. So when someone pulls over in a car, like you don't think they're going to come up to you and be nice. So then they pull over the car and they shout your name and come running to me, and they're like, "Can we have the photo?" I was like, "Yes, that I can do." There was just so much love there. It was just awesome, really awesome, and the food was brilliant. It was so good.
Oh, that's so cool. What kind of food did you have? Like, I don't know, any Myanmar food?
Also, so the first dish I wanted, because my mum cooks at home all the time, and I was just double checking that she was cooking the traditional way, was a dish called mahinga. So it's more like a noodle curry type thing. But yeah, she's been doing a good job, so she got lots of praise.
That's awesome. Is that something you can eat for breakfast, right?
No, so I actually had it for lunch.
Oh.
But I mean, yes, there's nothing stopping you from having it for breakfast.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that's just pretty cool. And also something I looked at the culture when I looked at myself. Don't they do the sunscreen thing? It's like this natural. Is it from a tree?
Yes.
What is that?
Right. So it's a form of sun protection, but it's also a makeup which they wear. But they're really quite like creative and decorative with it. I even put some on my own face, but I was a bit boring. I did like 2 big yellow circles. But yeah, it's meant to be like good for the skin. It's from like the natural wood from the trees, and yeah, helps protect them from the sun too. So it's like a 3-in-1.
That's wild. Did you feel like it helped your skin afterwards? Or you couldn't really notice a difference?
I'm not sure. I didn't really bathe in the sun, to be honest.
Okay. It's probably hot, right? Very hot there.
Oh, it was incredibly hot. Yeah, like really, really hot. But I mean, that was good because I still had like a little bit of weight to cut. So, there was no need to have a sauna. It was just sort of stand outside for about half an hour and you're okay.
Wow, that's crazy. And you went to Thailand too? Can you compare them, or you never went to Thailand?
I have been to Thailand. I do prefer Myanmar. I just feel like it's less touched. I just feel like there's more natural beauty. Plus, I'm super biased because my family are from there, so
That's cool.
It definitely takes #1 spot.
Did you see any of the temples? They have some crazy ones. There's like one's all like I think gold or something. Like there's some pretty crazy.
Yeah, we did. So actually, part of when we were doing the production for WLC on Lethwei, what they do, they take you round. So you can do sort of all the photography and video shoots outside. So it's like with the temple sort of running around with the flag in the traditional attire as well, and sort of learning how to tie it all up and wear all their clothes. It was really sweet. I think they didn't expect me to be so tall, because when I turned up and they had all these outfits for me, I remember thinking like, oh, I'm very tall. Like, I don't know if that's going to fit. But no, like the sentiment was really appreciated, and yeah, it was lovely. It was just stunning.
Yeah, what is that one thing that they wear? Even the men wear it. It's like a skirt, but it's not a skirt, right?
I've forgotten the exact term, but you can, depending if you're male or female, you tie it slightly differently. But yeah, it's the same sort of material, but just you wear it differently depending if you're male or female. Most likely for modesty.
I'm sure there's a few dudes that did it wrong and like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's this way you're talking about. But that's like interesting to me when I first heard that, because initially when I heard that I was like, Scottish people, they wear skirts, like that's not that weird, right?
Yeah. Oh, so their ones are really long. It's literally from your hips to your ankles. Not quite like the Scottish one, because that is very much like a skirt. That's like knee length. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, yeah. That is different. And I guess it's like they're made of silk and they're like smoother. I'm guessing like Scottish ones made of specific material.
Yeah, the Scottish ones are pleated and very crossed, checked, hashed. The ones in Myanmar are much more sort of authentic, I'd say. Um, Not pleated. Yeah.
But yeah, initially that was my first thing. I'm like, well, that's not too weird because the fight in that they fought in that, so there's a similarity. Because a lot of people think like there's a very different West Coast and East Coast, and if you look a little bit, there are similarities for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
What do you, the other thing I wanted to ask you is like I saw like you were doing K1 the Muay Thai Grand Prix, and then you did some rules where they didn't let you clinch as much. So like you're more of a Thai fighter than a kickboxer, because they were telling you like, hey, no clinching for this, and then it's weird because it's Muay Thai in the name, so it's like, are there certain fights you get to pick the rules to clinch and other ones you don't? Or...
Yeah, so it's really strange. Depending on what show you fight on, they have a completely different set of rules. So I even fought in China, was my first professional fight, which was quite a funny one, because it was my first professional fight, so I didn't really have much of a record. And they wanted someone to fight their like Chinese national champion. And the only way I could get the fight, which is not usually in my nature, was to say that like, don't pay me if I don't win.
Huh.
And that just like created a lot of drama in China. So then that was immediately put on the card, and I was like, great, I get an opportunity to fight. And their rules were very mixed as well. So you were only allowed to clinch once, but then you were also able to like grab their legs and sort of sweep them and throw them to the floor, which
Huh.
was sort of like a strange mix. And then, as you say, with the Muay Thai Grand Prix one, yeah, Muay Thai in the name, but then that rule set on the day was K1 based, so you weren't allowed to clinch. But that got very murky, because all of the corners and the ref were all Thai based, so it was very hard to distinguish. And yeah, there was lots of like changes there, I suppose.
Yeah, that's strange because like going against your own instinct, you know. I just yeah, I don't understand that. And I'm more of it's funny because even though I learned a little bit of Muay Thai, I'm more of a straight kickboxer that I was trained with. It's like yeah, I don't understand why you wouldn't have guys who understand those rule set better enforce that rule set. It's strange.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it makes more sense to have it that way, because then everyone knows exactly what they're scoring. Because there is a fair bit of difference, and I think it's important that if you are going to do K1 kickboxing, just so it's fair for everyone, that actually you've got all of the right parties there, as opposed to it's like having I don't know a boxer score a Thai boxing fight. You're not as trained in the eye. You know.
Right, and then you're not going to think leg kicks or anything, you know.
They're fine. Next. Yeah.
That's what happened in MMA. That's funny you said that. That's what happened in MMA though years ago. People wouldn't understand the judges because they are all boxing judges from, especially in the States here, with like Las Vegas and New York and New Jersey. They think, oh well, no, I'm just scoring the punches and like the big head kicks. So in here, like it took almost until 2020, 2018 that they started actually
Wow.
looking and going, oh wow, we should actually count these more. These matter.
Yeah, I think it's so important because there's so much confusion sometimes with the rule set, and then also like the audience as well sometimes don't help. But yeah, to be super clear with them is definitely a good thing.
The other thing I was going to ask was, it was the Chinese abroad fight. When you had that fight, did you feel like there was anything like I heard they're really good at like weight cutting and stuff like that. And were there any issues or things that you had to do that were different than when you do it on the West Coast? Like, were there times that you had to weigh in differently? Were there different protocols?
The weight cut in China was probably one of the hardest ones that I've ever had to do, because the flying, it just made me hold more water, and then when I got there, it was just incredibly hard. And usually as fighters, to sweat, if you're not like running outdoors, which I don't really prefer. I prefer to sort of sit in a hot bath, but like the water just wasn't hot enough. So like you had no choice but to try and run outside. But when it was pouring down with rain, you didn't know if you were like, you didn't know if it was sweat or you didn't know if it was rain that was falling on you. So that was like incredibly hard.
Wow.
And especially when you think you're just, so that was my first professional fight experience. And I think my initial thought was like, I was just going to turn up and I'd have all this time to like chill and just wake up. But you turn up and they have this like big agenda, like photo shoot, video shoots. We're taking you out here. Like, please can you look a bit more enthusiastic punching that bag? And you're like, I haven't eaten for 2 days.
Oh yeah, that's so crazy. Wow.
So that was pretty insane. But apart from that, I thought it was really good that they got us to the venue at a really good time. So we weren't hanging around for like 10 hours on end. And it was literally turned up maybe an hour before and it was like, bam, went and fought. But it was insane with all the rehearsals that you had to do the day before and sort of practice your walkout was, that was stuff that was all completely new to me, but was exciting.
I didn't know you practice walkouts.
No, I didn't know it was a thing either. And I was like, what, rehearsal? Like, do we rehearse the fight too? Like, no. I was like, sorry, asking for a friend. But yeah, no, it's brilliant. So they literally do the whole production. They play all the music. So, you choose your walkout music. They have the dancers as you're walking out. Like if there's like sparklers or special effects that are happening, they all go, they tell you like which camera you have to walk in, how long you have to do your little like punch combo for, where you have to stand.
Wow.
Just so you're completely familiar with all of that.
When you're an audience member, you're not like thinking of that, like, oh, they only have 1, 2, 3. Oh, they have 3 seconds. So you're just watching it. That's so wild.
Yeah, literally, they're like, you can punch 6 times or something, or you have like 30 seconds.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that for myself. I mean, was that the first time you actually went to a different time zone to go and fight? I can't even imagine how your body feels doing that.
No, so I've been fortunate in that I've like traveled a fair bit with fighting anyway. But typically when I fight abroad, I try and adjust my sleeping time zones. So I'll like be going to bed really early and then waking up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Like when I went to Myanmar, I was getting up at like 3 a.m. in the morning, trying to wake myself up, changed all my eating times. I even wore, so apparently, I don't know if this is true, but the blue light? So my body would like switch off sooner in the evening. You get these like orange glasses which block out any blue light, so you think it's the evening.
Oh no!
And when you're wearing the glasses, oh my God, I tell you feel like you're in Spain or like Bahamas or, somewhere really nice. And then you see a picture of yourself and they're like normal glasses that are just neon orange. So you look like a bit of a beetle. But, it's like all those little things where whether it's psychological or if it actually helps that, they all help get you as best prepared as you can. And when you get to such elite a level, it's like once you've smashed out like nutrition, training, mentality, it's always those little like 1% differences that add up. So you do like say 3 and then it's a 3% increase, or 10 small changes, you've got a 10% increase, and that's what really counts when you get to the really elite level.
Wow, that's interesting. And of course, sleep is always important. You're probably also doing that at lower levels too. I think that's probably one of the most underrated things is sleep.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, what else do you want to recover? And there's like all the supplements on the planet. But it's like, but are you actually sleeping enough? Like step 1.
Yep. Yeah, man. And water too. The water loading when you try and losing weight, water is such a vital, and then when you're trying to cut weight too, you're trying to not have water. Like you're 75, 80% water, your body. Like people don't realize that when they're watching the sport.
Yeah. In fact, you know what? I remember reading a study somewhere once before, like the impacts of just like a little bit of dehydration, that if you're dehydrated by even like 5%, it has a 20% impact in performance. Like you see a 20% decrease, and I was like, wow, so just 5%. And I'm like, well, yeah. And I was like, gee, I like constantly need to have a bottle of water in my hand.
Yeah, wow.
Like that's huge. That was like super significant. I never expected that.
Wow. Do you think there's any time you've come in the fights and you were like, man, maybe I should drink a little bit more water?
I don't know. Not looking back, but definitely looking forward. It's like this is a priority.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, people just don't realize that. The other thing I thought was really cool, and I saw your Instagram, and you're totally gonna have to educate me a bit because I really thought this was really interesting. It's gone now. It was in a
Okay.
story of yours. You said how cardio or getting women in the shape cardiovascularly was different. Like there was a line you had that women are not tiny men or something, right? So could you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I actually started working with some like boxing science guys down at one of the universities in the UK, and like they predominantly train like male boxing athletes, and their aerobic systems are just not completely different. Like there are some similarities, but like the underlying thing is that even from a cardiovascular perspective, what women have to do versus what men have to do for that basis isn't actually the same all the time. So trying to create like a generic one or a generic model just for athletes isn't enough. Like it has to be more granular to like females and males, because it's not, we don't just get like another version of a male plan. It's actually, it needs to be bespoke to females too. Um, so I'm really big on all of that as well.
That's super interesting. So is it kind of like if you train the same way as the guy would cardio wise, you're just not going to get like the
It
same
doesn't have the
effect.
same benefit.
That's
Yeah, so it just didn't
crazy.
have the same benefit when they were doing all the tests, and it was just like actually women have to do other additional adaptations to make sure that we can benefit, you know, as much, but just in a slightly different way.
Could you give me an example? Like what? Like what would have to be changed? You know?
So I can't remember now. I don't want to give false information. But one of them was one of them to have more sort of the high intensity and interval training versus sort of low intensity, but actually going on for a longer period of time and really focusing on keeping those heart rate zones, either in sort of the lower region or the higher region. I can't remember which way around it is now. I'm
Okay.
gonna have to check.
No, that's super cool though. Uh, I think that's something in fighting that a lot of people, because even so new to the sports and even like MMA is, and the way that you're seeing women go into fighting sports. I don't think there's enough science on really how we should train, to have the highest level you could have for a woman to fight, just like a guy. I think understanding that is like a breakthrough science. So I thought it was super interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like with the weight cuts, how it's so different. Like I speak to like my male like combat athletes, and they can sit in the sauna for like an hour and lose like a couple of kilos, and I'll be there with them, join them, and I swear I'll lose like half a kilo, if that, like at most. Um, so it's just really learning like what works best, and also with like female monthly cycles and things, like your body doesn't want to give up any water. So like how do you extract that? Like what do you do? Because I find it does make a really big impact. Like one day you'll be on weight, and the next day you'll be like 3 kilos over, and you're like, how? Like, what do I do now when I can't? Like, I'm not even sweating like for a decent amount of time. Like, you've then sat in the sauna for what, like 6 hours. So I think it's hugely different. Like, honestly, really different.
Wow, that's really interesting. Uh, yeah, is there anything? There's some other thing I had. I totally forgot I was going to ask you. I guess I'll bring it up if I can remember. But yeah, it just goes to show you, like, that's just something that we're going to find more of in the future. And, I'm pretty sure it'll grow you as a champ, and then I guess other people as well. So that was a boxing coach, or that's what it was?
Yeah, it was a boxing coach.
It was your boxing coach or just a friend of yours?
No, it was a boxing coach. He's also one of the scientists. I think it's one of the sports scientists at Sheffield University, if memory serves me right.
All right.
But yeah, really great insight, really good info for like all things related to like boxing as well. And a lot of like MMA fighters and kickboxers have started training with them to really like reap the benefits of, because like boxing's just got a lot more structure and a lot more support around it. So using their same findings and trying to then transfer that into sort of the kickboxing martial arts world as well, as opposed to just like pure boxing.
So, with that said, with women and needing to do different cardio stuff and cutting weight, do you find that like Is it a fact that you guys don't cut as much weight as a result? Like, how much weight do you actually cut then as a woman?
So I used to cut quite a lot. I used to cut maybe 8 to 9 kilos, which I thought was quite a lot. Now I try not to cut more than 5. I just find that I look at it more from like a longer perspective and my health overall, and I just feel like it's not good for my body to do that, especially when you're in such a deficit for so long. And I just don't feel, like, yes, I want to win, yes, I want to do my best, but I don't ever want to put my health at such a risk anymore. And if there was more support for females with sort of cutting weight and doing it safely, I'd probably look to cut a bit more. But at the moment, it's a strict 5 and no more.
What's your like? You've had a few weight classes, right? Or you only had one? Like,
No, I've had quite a few. So the lowest I fought is about 58 kilos. I fought once, maybe like 4 years ago. But most recently, 60 kilos, 63, 65, anything really above 60 works.
so like, what's your most comfortable weight you would say fighting that you felt?
66 kilos, but I find it really hard to get a fight at that weight. Like, really hard. Go on.
I'm you're a bigger girl, so how tall are you, right? So that also makes it.
So I'm like 5'8", 5'9".
Okay.
So quite tall for a female. So when in fact, you know what's funny? Lots of promoters don't think I'm that tall. So when they get like the tail of tape and you see it at the beginning, I see that my height's always reduced. Like, they've cut off a few inches until I actually turn up on the day and I'm like, oh. And they're like, we better change that.
Wow. Got to do your jobs over there. That's so funny.
They're like, no, she doesn't know how tall she is.
Yeah, she's from Myanmar. She's probably like 4'11", and then you show up.
She's from the UK. She's a hobbit.
She lives in one of those.
That's what they're thinking. They're like,
right. Oh, that's so great. And everybody. You're just like fighters. People think they're superheroes, but that's not what everybody does all day, all the time. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're a banker, right? You work for a bank. Is it a U.S. company or?
Yeah, I actually work for HSBC US, like in the States. So I actually work US hours too. So this is a good time to chat.
I know, and I wasn't too good with the times, and I live here. Like, it's like she knows the times better than I do. So apologies on that.
No, it's good. Like, the bank have been super supportive of everything that I do. I've actually agreed like a 6-month sabbatical with them next year, so I can take time out to just fight full time for 6 months.
Oh wow!
Which will be awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, I mean, it's been good, and it's nice to have something different to do alongside fighting as well. And it also just keeps me like cognitively there,
It's like a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it helps with my English as well sometimes, because I don't know, when you're in the gym, I feel like there's more like rough talk, or I don't speak so eloquently. So it's good to have like a balance, like a bit of both worlds,
Right. You're like in the war zone. You're in the barracks when you're in the gym, right? So it's okay.
Yeah, I know. And just like you just end up being like completely unrecognizable.
But yeah, like, it's cool because I saw they did a commercial, right? They're not commercial, but they did show, like, I was watching on YouTube. So it's cool. They support you enough that they kind of showed that, hey, you kind of work there and you're a little bit of a badass.
Yeah, I mean, that was brilliant. When they said they wanted to do that, I was all up for it. And they were like, where do you usually fight? And I was like, well, like York Hall, it's like a really prestigious like boxing venue, like just generally like a martial arts venue in the UK. So I was like, yeah, this is where we like usually like, this is a great place to like promote. And then the next thing I knew, they'd like hired out the whole place, and we were there all day filming. I was like, this is insane. Like, great. And I don't think I'd even fought there yet. I was fighting there in like 2 months' time.
Oh wow.
And like absolutely buzzing for it. But it was great to sort of practice the walkout for the ad.
That's so cool. What that's an awesome people at your job. So I want to give a shout out to them. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was. That was brilliant.
So, what do you heard? This is going to change the subject drastically, and I'll try not to go too linger on this too long. So, what do you got? What have you heard of cryptocurrency? Because you're in banking and stuff like that. Have you understand it? Are you against that kind of thing?
Oh, I'm not against it. You know, if I understood it, I'd be totally up for like playing with cryptocurrencies and things like that. I think for me, because it's so volatile, like you have to be so, or I would want to be like completely on top of it, like constantly staring at all the rates to know when to cash in and that. As opposed to like stocks and shares, you know, you can choose if you're going to have like a short term investment or if it's something that's going to be slightly longer, you know, and you don't have to worry about it. Like, so what's the word? Like daily, like regimentally. Are you really interested in cryptocurrencies then?
I'm all in. I'm all into it. So, if you want like me to explode to educate you, I'm the dude.
Oh, brilliant. High level. Let's go high level.
So I'm just going to say to people that don't understand cryptocurrency, it's basically a way to protect yourself. It's like gold and silver is kind of mixed with stocks. So I basically say if you're trying to get in cryptocurrency, don't look at any altcoins. Altcoins are any coins that aren't Bitcoin. And now Ethereum is the second one. So I would say for laymen, think of them as gold and silver. You know, Bitcoin's the big one, so that's gold. Ethereum is the silver. Anything else, you got to not have a life, and you got to check everything.
Okay,
and
gotcha. Right.
and I do that. But if I had to tell you, as somebody who's like, I got a job, I'm fighting, I don't want to pay attention to that too much. If you just invested, even now, like I don't know if you're aware, it's almost at its all-time high. It's almost at $20,000 Bitcoin right now. It's like 19, 18, and they did a shift again. But why? People are like, well, why is this happening? Why should people care? Why whatever? You know, we are under an incredible amount of economic stress during these times. And then, you know, money in itself, most of the banks around every national country has fiat currency and it's paper money. So long story short, there's nothing to back it. It's a great Keynesian economics thing. You're supporting anything you want to do, and you can infinitely do that. But as a result, eventually, your currency and your country's value becomes worthless. So enter into cryptocurrency. Why would I care to buy cryptocurrency? Why can't you make 1 million Bitcoins? Can't you keep making these things? So the real thing that makes them interesting is it has a digital, kind of like a digital identifier mark that can't be duplicated. So if you ever played a video game and they have like a rare sword that'll drop, you're like, if everybody had that sword in the game, nobody would think that sword's cool. They'd be like, that's stupid. What these do is it has like, it's an identifier that knows it's like rare data language, and it knows that this is specifically this coin, Bitcoin, or whatever. So what you're doing is you're spending money for rare software, for a rare program that offers protection. So Bitcoin is
programmed to be scarce too.
Oh, you can come in anytime. He's basically more of an expert than me because he's a computer scientist. I'm more like the
awesome.
I'm more like I went to history. I have a history degree in like on money and stuff like that. So history of money, and this guy's a computer scientist. So.
But,
wow! Great combo.
Right?
It's like
the
Justice
winning
League.
combination that you want.
Right? It's like the Justice League for economics.
Yeah.
Because I'm more like, we're both libertarian in a sense, but like, you know, you have the idea of history and then you back it up with
what's
that.
cool about it is that it's a currency and a payment network. You know, like like we're used to stuff like PayPal and, you know, like having a credit card. Those are payment network. But then you have something that's a currency, and then at the same time that's digital. We've never had anything like that in human history ever.
Yeah,
and that
wow.
It's programmatically, if you look at the algorithm of it, the way it's programmed, it's artificially scarce. There can only be 21 million Bitcoins in existence. So so it starts from 0, and it just keeps creating more and more until it hits that number, and you can never print any more. And that's generally how it gets its scarce value.
So there's a cap limit. I think it's 21 million Bitcoins. And the whole cool thing is it works as a decimal system. You don't need a whole Bitcoin to partake in the procedure. You don't need to buy a whole bar of gold. So it goes to like even decimals, so
it's easily divisible.
Divisible, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
And then there's another thing with the protection of like the mining. Tell about that.
Say that again?
The mining. How's the mining work? Because that's a big part of the security of why it's unhackable. So,
the value of it also not comes from it being scarce, but the strength of the network. Because for all these transactions, like you think of like a PayPal or a MasterCard for their payment network, they're running all these computers. So how do you incentivize people to support a network? So there's people around the world that are running computers and all that stuff that are giving the power of that to help power it basically, these computers are validating all the transactions on the network that are coming in and out, and as they get a reward for basically validating everything correctly, not trying to game the system, all these computers are competing, and once the one that gets it right and all that, the first one that gets it gets a reward, and then that goes into the supply of it.
It's super interesting.
It just takes a vast amount of electricity, and that's why you see some people, they can't do it anymore at their house. They used to mine Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah, like back in the day, you could just leave a laptop on, and you could get rich, just given the computing power.
Because it was only like less than $1,000 or $100.
But as more people plug in, it gets more competitive, and you need a stronger system. Now you need like a server farm, just to compete.
You need like a cold room and fans blowing and like, you know what I mean? Some dude smoking a cigar, watching all this stuff.
I've got the picture.
So it's a completely profitable industry that it's turned into. Just the point is a lot of normal people just don't understand how it operates. And when that happens, you have a vast opportunity to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So Ethereum is, I'll give you a tip, is basically worth over $10,000, but it's undervalued at $500-$600 American. So that's the whole point is when it gets educated, when Bob, your next door neighbor, goes, yeah, I got like a couple Bitcoin, you missed out. You're not making any money. But when you're doing it where the guy walking his dog down the street doesn't know about it yet. So it's like a stock too. If you knew about a company or anything that was like worth to be invested in that nobody else does.
Yeah.
It's a lot like that. The only thing you're doing is it's digital assets.
Yeah. No, really fascinating. Really fascinating.
And the one other thing I'll say before, I'll end the conversation on it is if you're really into doing it, instead of having like a bank that holds your money, you need to have a crypto wallet.
Yeah.
So the way that works is like, it's really no different than downloading any specific program for it. There's a bunch of wallets. Bitcoin, Ethereum is pretty simple. But you got to understand there's the wallet you have, and you have to remember the password, phrase, and all the stuff, and you securely write all that down. You even write like it in two places in case like it gets on fire and then you lose all your money. Because it is so definite that the big difference between banking and this currency is if you mess up a transaction at the bank, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to call up.
Yeah.
I got Debbie, I got Nicola, I got whatever.
Yeah, I'll be there to help. You get through Nicola with crypto.
But the beauty of it is that it's something humanity has never had. Like, you don't need an email or a taxpayer ID or a social security number to open up a crypto wallet and start sending money and all that stuff like that. Yeah. Like, we have people in third world countries who are unbanked. They can't run a business the same way we do in the first world. They can't send money as easily to a family member because they don't have the infrastructure of a bank locally to go walk or drive and have those utilities.
Yeah.
So yeah, for certain parts of the world, it's a very powerful thing.
But yeah, I would just say go and find yourself a wallet when you want to invest and know the difference between the wallet and really it's so simple. You can put Bitcoin, the Ethereum wallet, so simple. But the exchanges are a different place. When you ever hear someone goes, oh, somebody hacked Bitcoin and they got all this money, that's not what happens. What happens is there's an exchange, and it's kind of like they get a FDIC license. They are related to like a bank structure. And so basically they go, hey, we're going to be a spot where you can buy your crypto. But the point is that somebody could hack into that system, that app, like whatever it is. I'll use the example of crypto.com. That's something you can use on your phone to download. But when you're on the exchange, whether you're trying to do like a money market and gain interest on your Bitcoin or whatever you're doing, there is a very good chance that maybe somebody could hack that exchange and take everybody's money. So you have to be really aware that when you're done buying your Bitcoin and maybe you're done trying to make it gross, whatever, be safe enough to take your stuff and put it back in your digital cryptocurrency wallet.
Yeah.
And not leave it in exchange.
Well, it's the same thing like money in the bank. That bank could be robbed. Then there's all your savings. Opposed if you had your money under your mattress, it's just you who knows where that is.
You're safe!
Like Grandma used to do, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
But yeah, that's that in a nutshell. You can do a little more research if you want, but that's pretty much the easiest way I could say if you wanted to get into it, not do too much research. You got a safe place where you put your money, and then you have the wallet where you put your notebook, the passphrases, you double write them down, and basically you're good. And you still got to work, you still got to make your money, and it's just like anything else. You're not putting your whole bank account into it. It's just something to help make your investment grow, right? Or just help your wealth kind of expand. And right now it's profitable and it makes sense. And honestly, in a year or two, it won't make sense for anybody or a lot of people. So right now you're cool. You can almost be like, dude, this guy's awesome. He made me money now. It's because now it's cool. But if I told you to do this in 8 months from now, you'd be like, you got a really awesome accent. You'd be like, you fucked me over, you know? But
just like that.
Just thank you. I love accents anyway and voices. I used to do comedy actually. British comedy. I love the young ones. You know, Monty Python, of course, Monty Python, Little Britain. I love all those. So.
Oh, everyone does. Yeah, absolutely. They're old classics.
Super awesome. I mean, so I love British culture even anyway. So yeah, I guess I went on a tangent there. So that's cryptocurrency. If you've got any questions, let me know. And then I'll just go on to the next thing. So yeah, you're cool there. Anything else you find fascinating about it? What's your first? I'd say a lot of information. So like, what's your first thought on that?
You know, it just feels like a different world. I feel like I'm more comfortable with like stocks and shares as opposed to like cryptocurrencies, where I just feel like, oh, am I going to have to babysit it 24/7? But I think you've just articulated really well that there's like differences, like ones that you do need to like babysit. Probably not the right term, but I feel like that gives the sentiment. And then ones that, you know, you don't have to be so like diligently like focused, like staring at all the time.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But yeah, if you wanted to, just keep it with those two, and you don't have to waste your life looking at Chainlink and all these other different things, you know. And then you're basically no different than like some guy who looks at porn, but you just look at cryptocurrencies, you know. It's not healthy anymore, you know.
Same thing.
Yeah, right. Same thing, you know. So let's go back into fighting a little bit. So out of like most of your fights, like who would you say, what was the most difficult opponent that you had? Was it really a Lethwei fight or was it anything else?
No, you know what? It was probably the 4-girl tournament that I had at York Hall, because I broke my nose. I had my nose because it was 2 fights in the same night. And in the first fight, wow, I got punched in the face and it was just blood everywhere.
Oh my
God.
Oh,
yeah, when I listened to the commentary back, I was like, oh, they were so nice. They were like, just a bit of moisture. Oh my Lord, it was like everywhere. I was like, you know,
just
when you have to actually, like,
it's like a spritz spray. That ain't.
Awful.
That's so like Britishly nice way to put it.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
It was, wasn't it? And I was watching it back, thinking like, oh, you know, that was such a nice way to put it, but it was like a million times worse.
Oh man.
Someone breaks an arm. It was only a sprain.
Just a sprain.
That was probably the hardest, because then for the second for the second match that night, I just knew I had to try and keep my face from being hit, which is like something that you know is going to happen. Because I also feel that sometimes fights are stopped for women a bit sooner, especially when there's like lots of blood. I don't know. Refs tend to like panic and they'll cut it off. Whereas you'll see like men continue and like the gashes are huge. So I'm always like super conscious of the fact that I don't want it to look bad. But then like, where do you wipe blood when you're only wearing like a sports bra and shorts? Like, there isn't many places to go. But that was probably the most challenging. But I did absolutely love it. Like it was a time where I felt like I could really test myself. You know, like 1 minute it felt like it was going her way, the next minute it was me. I feel like you learn a lot about yourself during a fight, and I was just so proud to look back and be like, you dug so deep. You know, I was like, I'm proud for you. Like, looking back, like, you know, when you get to watch the replay, and I was like, good job.
Yeah, that's cool. That's definitely awesome. And breaking your nose, do you find like some fighters can't deal with, you know, certain things that happen? Like you feel, how broken was your nose? Like, did you feel you couldn't breathe out of it? And does that affect you in a fight more than other things?
No, I couldn't breathe out of it at all. Like literally, no. Like it was, the blood was just coming too much. But I think I'm a bit of a mouth breather anyway, so I didn't really, you know, it's just a bit of inconvenience to like constantly have your mouth full of blood. But it was all right. I think when you're in the fight mode, it's just, you know, for me personally, it's just so positive. Like there's one goal, it's to win. Like, you know, you just have to work around every little challenge and hiccup that comes. But like the goal's to win. So like, yeah, okay, I have broken nose. Yeah, it'll bleed. Like they'll fix it later. You know, it's not a big deal. Like let's just get to the end of this fight. And that was it. That was the goal.
Yeah, definitely. You know, there's so many things with like adrenaline and stuff like that, you know, and you're right. You just learn so much more about yourself through a fight, you know, and then you learn about life.
1,000,000%.
Like, how good do you feel you can take on, let's not even talk about fighting, but like what training has given you, like seriously, like, do you feel like you just take on and deal with life's bullshit easier? Am I wrong about that?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like it gives you like a great tolerance for everything else. Like, absolutely. Like, you know, you see other issues and I'm like, just don't even worry about it. Like, there's bigger problems. I feel like it puts you in a really good place, like mentally and everything. I just feel like it really helps.
Yeah, I think for me too, I think a lot of people, I think it's just a very meditative and healthy thing, you know. For me, like I basically had like a point where I have a stomach disease and I couldn't go pro. I couldn't weight cut anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, I have it's a cyclical vomiting syndrome where I get pain and nausea and one can bring up the other. And I basically
Oh my Lord.
almost die every other year because it's like so much weight I'll lose from the loss of like fluids, water, food, and I can't get any medication down. And I was on heavy oxycodone and all these other stuff. And I couldn't sleep and I'd get these shakes and I was like, Mom, what's going on? What, you know, and she's a nurse. So she's like, you're getting, she's like, I know you got withdrawals. And I was like, shit. So I used everything I knew from traditional martial arts and kickboxing I tried to shadow box for sweat. I would meditate, try and get my mind clear off of it. I would try and do everything I possibly could and even do katas and stuff just so I would push that feeling away. So I can tell for me, martial arts has saved my life, you know, and I'm sure in some way martial arts probably saved your own lives too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like 1,000,000%. I think it's just like the blessing in disguise. For like an incredibly long time. And also I was actually born with a condition called narcolepsy. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
You fall asleep, right? Narcolepsy?
Oh, like insanely. Yeah. Everyone thinks that you're like the lazy child. When in fact, you know, it's actually like a condition that you're born with.
Wow.
And like I used to have it so bad. Like I'd be out pretty much like six hours a day and then I'd fall asleep like perfectly at night too. So I used to miss so much. And it was only when I started getting into martial arts that like my narcoleptic episodes became like less and less. And I think it was like when I was 21, they just completely went.
That's amazing.
Which is like, yeah, it is super incredible because usually like when people get narcolepsy, they just have it for life and it ends up being really quite debilitating sometimes. So it was really good that, I was saved.
That's crazy. So you would think people that have that couldn't get a lot done, and here you are, a fighter, and you have a banking job and all this. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so cool. I have like two more questions. I want to respect your time. So Burmese Python, the name, real quick, did you come up with it? Was it your mom? Was it a training partner?
No, so it was my first coach actually. So it was to marry up the fact of my heritage from being my mother from Myanmar, grandparents, but also the fact that my fight style was like very aggressive and fearless, and sort of marry them together. And we had the Burmese Python, and I just absolutely loved it. I was like, yes, this is the one.
Dope ass name. I love it. And I just think it goes with your personality, and it goes your fighting style. Even though you're taller, you know, you think like a long snake, right? So I think it's perfect, honestly.
Yeah.
And so my last question is, what's next for you? Like, do you see yourself going to glory? Do you see yourself going to MMA? Do you see Lethwei as just something you're going to get the title? What is the future for the Burmese Python?
I don't know at the moment. I mean, I definitely love to get a world title in Lethwei. I definitely want to get a world title in kickboxing. Those are like my two immediate goals. What platforms they are, and obviously to fight on one championship would be absolutely incredible. That's what I've got my eye on, and it's just, you know, putting the foundations in place now to make sure that it happens.
And do you find one championship you're going to do like the striking, like just straight the Muay Thai stuff, or you can do the MMA?
Either them Muay Thai, or they actually do kickboxing too. So
they do. Okay.
They do. So I'll dabble in that as well.
That's cool. That's awesome. And would you ever person that could ever, because it's hard being the mixed martial arts thing, could you ever learn, you could see yourself learning jiu-jitsu, or you just like, you know, man, I just love the bang and I'm just going to stick with that?
I love being standing at the moment. Like, maybe, I mean, never say never, but at the moment, like, just purely punching, kicking, headbutts. 9 limbs is enough for now.
Absolutely. And I guess, is there anything you want to just tell the world, or like someone who's trying, maybe someone's a young female fighter, what could you tell them as an exit?
Just never give up, because, you know, you think what your first failure is. Like, my very first fight I lost, and I remember being so distraught because I put so much hard work in. And I was genuinely thinking like, oh, this isn't for me then. And like, looking back now, I just think like, man, if I'd given up, I'd missed out on all of this. So like, no matter how hard it gets, no how hard it seems, like, just keep going, because you'll look back one day and you'll be able to connect the dots. And unfortunately, we can never connect the dots going forward, but backwards we always can. So keep the faith.
That's beautiful. And I think that's an awesome note to end on. Never give up, never surrender, people. It's awesome. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, Nicola Barke, the Burmese Python. It was a pleasure talking to you. If you guys want to go and check your IG, it is the Burmese. Is it Burmese Python exactly? Is it our underscores?
Yeah, it's the Burmese Python.
Dot. There you go. And so definitely check her out. And she's going to be also Amazon Prime. Do you have another Lethwei fight? You can see some of your fights there. And UFC Fight Pass.
I only have one so far, but hopefully another one to come soon. So we'll see.
Awesome. Awesome. So it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you later. And just good luck on your next fight, Nicola.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Been a pleasure. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
Bye-bye.